Hi, Tony Selzer here. Welcome to the line. I've got one of the country's greatest experts on this healthcare movement. What's going on the provider side, on how organizations on the provider side are going to build income and make money in today's times, in post-Obamacare legislation, how that's going to work for them. So I've got Rochelle Glassman, who is the CEO of United Physician Services. Now, Rochelle, you've got to be either really hair on fire with what's going on, or you've just got to be salivating, because these organizations are in a lot of pain today. I mean, they're really trying to figure out how do they navigate the future. Would you agree?
I do. I agree with you wholeheartedly that providers are scared and nervous about the future. A lot of it is unfounded because they don't understand the term Obamacare or the new legislation. And so it's a matter of education and understanding what benefits are out there and what they need to try and avoid, so that they remain profitable and aren't forced into having to be employed by a hospital or a larger organization if they want to stay independent.
Right. Well, and that's just where I think it's really important that you are an expert on how the rules have changed, and the rules have very much changed for these providers, and a lot of them are intimidated by what they don't understand. And that's really what you guys do, and what I think you're great at is helping them understand how to take advantage of these rules and then create opportunities that they used to deem as threats. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's a great analogy of the way that physicians need to move forward. I mean, obviously, they went into healthcare to take care of patients, not to learn the healthcare laws and acts. That's why we have healthcare attorneys. But healthcare right now is extremely regulated. It's changing. It's complicated. And I don't see that changing in the near future.
Yeah, we have seen that volatility creates unique opportunity, right? And I think one of the things that your company specializes in is how to leverage that volatility to create new business models and new opportunities for growth in the organizations. Give me some examples on what you've been doing with your clients.
So, data, as you know, is key in this environment. And as you know, it was mandated many years ago that physicians get on an EMR and get rid of their paper charts. And in fact, there are still incentives out there for physicians to do that. That was a huge, painful transition for physicians, not only because of the expense of implementing an EMR, but the reduction in productivity that they experienced. Obviously, there's a lot of great salesmen out there selling them EMRs. Oh, let's get everybody on at once, instead of putting one provider on at one time so the other 3 or 4 providers can maintain the patient volume. So now that they're on the EMR, they have access to an unbelievable amount of data, not just for billing and collections, but to really look at their specific business and the type of business that they're in and the type of services that they provide. So a couple of examples with Obamacare that may benefit physicians. One is, as you know, there's a great big push in this country to fight obesity. Obesity is a huge growing problem in the United States, as it is in Western Europe. So Obama decided that for those patients with a BMI over 30, that would indicate that those patients are obese, that they could come to the primary care doctor and be treated and taken care of on a weight reduction program. For those patients, there is no out-of-pocket expense, no deductible, no co-payment. And as long as the patient is able to lose 7 pounds, in I believe it's a 6-month period, not too difficult to do, just over £1 a month, then they are entitled to additional visits. So the first 6 months, patients can go to their primary care for 26 visits. So if I was a primary care physician and I had a volume of patients, I would check all my patients' BMI. You paid to do the BMI. Those patients that fall into the above 30 or above category, I would then create a weight loss program to support those patients. And that way you are getting an additional 26 visits in 6 months. Now, maybe you're a physician who's extremely busy and don't have the time to do that with your current patient volume. If the volume of the patient substantiates for you to hire a mid-level provider to increase your revenue and utilize your space appropriately because you have fixed expenses, those aren't going to change with the addition of a nurse practitioner. Your only variable expense is the nurse practitioner's salary and comp, maybe an MA, a medical assistant to support her, and any medications which you will be reimbursed for. So that's just one example of many that Obamacare actually can enhance your revenue stream at the practice level.
And I think that's what your company does so well. It's just really by understanding how the rules have changed, delivering new business model opportunities for these organizations to evolve and become more of an accountable care organization to leverage and take advantage of the changes rather than to have their cheese move with those changes. And I think that's one of the things that United Physician Services does better than any organization in the game. It's looking and creating within that box how you're going to take advantage of this environmental change to get to that next level.
Yeah, another example with regards to the payers. So that's an example with patients. So now we have, let's use family practice, or we can use endocrinology. Diabetes is also a huge pandemic here in the United States. And several years ago, under the HEDIS requirements, the payers decided for those patients who were diabetic and go for diabetic eye tests for diabetic retinopathy, they would bonus the provider two ways. One way is to provide them with an additional 20% of their reimbursement for that visit. So if a diabetic patient comes in and you bill out a 99213, on average $64 in reimbursement, you would get an extra $12, $13 as a bonus potentially if that patient went for a diabetic retinopathy appointment, which can lead to blindness in patients, a very huge expense for healthcare. And what we found out in our research for a client of ours was that, in fact, 80% of the patients who were referred for diabetic retinopathy eye tests actually don't go for the test.
Oh, wow.
So the doctors do their job, they refer them, but they don't go for the test. So at United Physician Services, we thought, okay, this is going to be a no-brainer, right? We'll run again through the EMR how many diabetic patients you have by running diagnosis codes. And if the volume substantiates bringing in an ophthalmologist into the practice, because it's so much easier just to go to see the doc and the doc say, hey, Mrs. Jones, let's go see our optometrist here down the hallway.
You brought it inside to create a new opportunity for them, right?
Right. And so you don't only get, so the way to get two additional revenue streams is one, to guarantee your bonus of the 20%, the $12, $13 on a 99213. The second revenue stream is to create a financial model with the optometrist or ophthalmologist in your practice that is now doing the eye screening. So we actually did this. We did run into a little pickle, though, because as everyone who will watch this video understands, that eye testing is a delegated service through a third party, whether it's VSP or some other eye care giant. And they actually it took a huge push with the health plans for the diabetic retinopathy program to allow providers to contract directly with the payer, not for eye tests, but for diabetic retinopathy screening, which they really didn't take into consideration when they put this HEDIS program together. So, my thought process is that they being the payers, didn't really think about whether the physicians could meet those HEDIS goals to pay them, because they couldn't. Unless you have a change in national contracting at the payer level, then it's very difficult to bring some of those services in-house, but we were very successful in making that happen. And just so you know the numbers here, Tony, our client went from being 80% non-compliant, which is the national average, to 95% compliance within their office, and it generated $500,000 extra in revenue.